probably a couple of
I
days.
have one, but it's out in my shop. It's a bit of a hike.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Let's see in camera. Let's go back to the main. Okay, we have two Chris Sullivans. If we could have someone rename their feed so I don't get confused. Okay. Hi.
It's actually Marie DePero.
Okay, that's what I thought, but Chris can be a woman's name.
Chris can be in two places at one time. I have witnessed that.
Who, me?
Yeah, hi, Penny. I think
Hi.
it feels like that for all of us these days.
For men, it's a superpower. For women, it's innate. You all have it. Okay. Well, it looks like we're just starting right on time here, and looks like we have enough folks. So we'll call to order right at 1:30. And first off, I'd like to recognize that we're conducting our business today on the territories of the Nuu-chah-nulth peoples. Our offices are specifically located on the lands of the Hupatchisitt and the Tishat First Nations, though I think all of us are doing business from various locations, including but not limited to the Coast Salish peoples and the Kwanghan speaking peoples as well. So with that in mind, I think we have an agenda before us. There are a few items that were late, but you should have been able to download them right off the website. I'm not certain if there were any items that were to be added late. I think they were just late materials. Wendy, is that correct?
Mr. Chair, yes, there is a late request for decision regarding ACRD open meetings. So we could consider that under 8F. It was emailed to directors and it's also on our website.
Okay,
for
thank
viewing.
you very much. Are there any other items to be adopted on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, could we have a motion? Director McNabb.
I move the agenda with the additions.
Thank you, Director McNabb. Do we have a second?
Seconded.
Thank you, Director Cole. Hand up first, but I did hear you, Director Coots, so thank you. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Alrighty. All right, that brings us to declarations. Does anyone have any declarations of conflicts of interest or gifts exceeding $250? That includes perceived conflicts. Director Bodner.
Yes, I have conflict of interest for 9.1A and C.
Okay, so you have declared a conflict for items 9.1A and 9.1C. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you. And Director Cote.
Thank you. I also have a conflict with 9.1A and C. Thank you.
Okay, so what I might actually ask to do is, I should have said this right at the approval of the agenda. Could we perhaps do item B after item C? So switch those two so we don't have to kick them out, do it, and then kick them out again. Director McNabb?
So I'm just wondering what that does to the rural quorum when we go to do those two. Have we got two directors out? Have we got enough directors to keep that afloat?
So
Do you want me to answer that?
Because it's the ones that are in the planning function, so
yeah.
more than just the rural directors.
So there's Bob, yourself, and Kel. So we've been missing two. Is quorum?
And Tanya.
Oh, and Tanya. Thank you. I'm gonna move you up to the top so I don't miss you.
I guess we should be okay there.
Okay.
Yes, we should be. You'll be okay.
Is that the? Is that what we were going to say, Mike?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we're fine.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that. Anyone have any gifts exceeding 250? If not, we can move on to the next item. Dr. McNabb?
In the next meeting, I will, I hope.
Okay.
I'll have a new shop or a new car or something that I'll have to declare. when
just
Santa
don't-
Claus comes?
Just a whole new level on your house, like that episode of The
that's right.
Simpsons. Yeah. Okay, so that brings us to item 4A, which is the Board of Directors meeting for November 25th, 2020.
Move adoption.
Second.
Thank you, Director Cote, seconded by Director McNabb. Does anyone have anything missing? Seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Next item is 4B, which is the Alberni Valley Airport Advisory Committee meeting dated December 2nd, 2020.
To adopt.
Thank you, Director Haggard.
Second.
Thank you, Director Cote. Does anyone have any comments? Director Shannon, please go ahead.
Thank you. Just reading through the minutes from this one, for the members present versus people listed, under 3A, it was moved by D. Savard, but they're not listed at the top of the minutes. So either that name got missed for members present or there's a wrong name in for the moving.
Thank you, Director Cote.
Thank you. Dan Savard was there, so that would have been an oversight.
Okay.
That was all I had.
Okay, if that could be incorporated as a correction, then I think we're okay. Do we need to do a motion to do that, or can that just be stated?
They can just be adopted as amended.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay, with that in mind, are there any other comments? So this is moving it as amended. Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, great. So that brings us to item 5, which are petitions, delegations, and presentations. So generally speaking, we limit presentations, delegations, etc. to 10 minutes, but that's for the content of your presentation. So I usually give a bit of leeway when it starts and when it ends, especially if it seems like you're close to the end of your presentation. If not, if I hold up 2 fingers or 1 finger, that generally means how many minutes you have left. And if I just cut you off, it's not the end, it's a pause to see if the directors wish to continue your conversation or your presentation. This doesn't count Q&A at the end, so we should be generally okay. So first up, we have Mr. Sullivan and Ms. Dupereau. Is that the name pronunciation? Okay. So they're here to talk about capital planning and leasing and island house items in general, but mostly the capital plan, I think. So I don't know who's speaking first, so please, either of you take it away.
So I guess, thank you, Chair. I will start. Chris Sullivan, Director of Capital Planning and Leasing at Island Health. And I do have a presentation. If someone could just help me.
Okay, I think Janice will just make it so that you're able to share, and then you should be able to share. So let us know when you're ready.
You should be able to share, Chris, if you just push your share screen button at the bottom. It's green.
Okay.
Okay. So if you hit F5, Chris, you should be able to start the presentation.
Can you see that?
Yep. Go ahead and hit the present. Yeah, you can hit that button. So Chris, could you look at your keyboard and hit the F5 key?
F5. Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, please go ahead. Sorry about that.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Just a few updates in terms of capital planning. Just go to the next slide here. Okay. I decided to just provide a summary, and maybe some of you know this already, but we have 2 provincial funding sources The first one's called routine capital, and that's for our more routine investments. Could be asset rehabilitation, upgrades, renovations, like say the West Coast General Hospital Emergency Department will be a renovation, or equipment replacement. And we get that money from the ministry on an annual basis. They provide us a 1-year allocation. They also provide us with additional targets for the next 3 years that we can use to start our planning process. And we would get ministry's annual approval from the ministry, and for that routine capital that we can use at our discretion. But the ministry does have approval processes for projects over 2 million and to Treasury Board for items over 5 million. And the second provincial funding source is priority investments. And this would be in a priority investment, an example of a priority investment would be replacement of the Tofino General Hospital. So I put that down here. And so that's more of an ad hoc approval where the health authority submits to the ministry our annual request for priority investments. So these are whole asset replacements. These are larger projects. And we submit that to the ministry on an annual basis. And we wait for the ministry to prioritize the priority investments for all the health authorities. And then they submit that to central government for prioritization against other projects like schools, university colleges, highways, etc. And so we wait for that to happen before we know whether or not we can proceed with what we call a concept plan and later business case. And I'll speak to that later when I talk about Tofino General Hospital. Just a few comments around our annual prioritization process. I won't talk about each of these different items, but just generally speaking, we start in May, and we start with our frontline leadership. So our managers, our local directors, their medical director colleagues who are doctors, and so they create a priority list for their projects and equipment, which they submit up to their up to the executive directors, and eventually we get to a priority list which goes to our executive in December. And so and from that list we then share that with each of the RHDs, their specific projects and equipment based on funding availability. Just a few updates in terms of what's happened in the last year in terms of capital planning. I mentioned routine capital investments where we get 4 years. We get 4 years worth of numbers. But really years two to, and I think I should say years. Yeah. So basically we get years 2 to 4 are more notional numbers. What the health authority has done is we've now starting to create a 5-year list of projects and equipment, which of course are subject to change based on affordability and reprioritization on an annual basis. But that's something we haven't done in the past. We've always focused on 1-year lists of routine capital investments. Now we're trying to get to a 5-year list, and it's a work in progress. I've already mentioned that the 10-year priority investment plan that we submitted to the ministry. I think 10 years is a new step for us. We're trying to go longer term. In the last year, we've had a lot of focus on primary and community care capital investment, and that can range for various things. What we call urgent primary care centers, where we opened up a few of them in the Lower Island as well as in Nanaimo, and this is intended to help people who don't perhaps have a physician, a family doctor, and to help them avoid going to the emergency department, which fills up our emergency department. They can be dealt with through an urgent primary care center. And of course, everyone's aware that we have COVID-19, and so with that, we've done a lot of projects relating to opening up testing centers across the island, preparing our facilities for the COVID vaccine and distributing those. We've also done things like commission an additional 16 beds at Nanaimo Hospital. So we're taking over space that wasn't used for patient care, and we're converting that over to patient care just in case we need that extra capacity. And of course, there's a long list of other equipment that we've approved for COVID-19 preparation. So I was asked to give an update on West Coast General Hospital Emergency Department redevelopment. So we are finalizing our documentation for going out to tender. We're just waiting for our government confirmation on that. And I expect some more information very soon regarding that project. So. And a little update on Tofino General Hospital. As I mentioned, this is on our priority list. We have a few things on our priority list. We have some long-term care facilities that the province, which province wants to take a focus on, and so we're trying to add capacity. So we're just doing some business planning around that. We're also looking at maybe a new patient tower at Nanaimo Hospital, and of course we have Tofino General Hospital replacement on our priority investment plan. And so, as I mentioned, it's gone into government for their review, and so if we get an approval, the approval would be to initiate a concept plan, and a concept plan looks at basically considers a need for the project, alternatives for addressing the need, and assessment of financial implications, and a preliminary recommendation before additional time and resources are committed in terms of supporting a detailed business plan. So that was basically just a quick update that I had. So I'm open to questions if you have any.
All right. Thank you for that presentation. I'll open it up for comments. Director McNabb.
So the one question with regards to the West Coast General, do we have a cost window, just so we know what we have to have in hand?
Yes, so I believe we've shared with you the cost of about $6.25 million, and you have that funding in place already. I'd like you to let your staff confirm that. But
okay, the other question I had was with regards to the Tofino General Hospital, and I've got a copy of the earthquake assessment on that building, and it's pretty gloomy. I don't know if you've seen that, but it's about double the risk that is normal tolerance. So getting that rebuilt is, in my mind, really quite a high priority, given that we haven't had a major earthquake for a while and we're really due for one, and that would be just an absolute disaster on the West Coast if we had an earthquake and the building fell to the ground. So I think we need to kind of try to push that along the best we can.
Thank you for that. Okay, next up I have Director Cote and then Director Steer. Did I miss anyone? Seeing none. Go ahead, Director Cote, please.
Thank you. Through the chair, I'd like to say thanks for the connection here and presentation to the board. It's been a while since we've had a meeting again. I'd like to know if there's any participation from Island Health regarding Ukulele Health Center. Thanks.
so I'm not sure if Marie wants to answer that, or.
Sure, I can, and then Chris, if you have anything to add. So we are still absolutely working on that. And we've just received some communication from the municipality in Ukulele, and our capital folks, as well as our executive director, and myself and Dr. Johnson, who's my medical director co-lead, are still looking at all the options there and moving forward with that planning.
Is there a time frame for that?
Actually, there's not a time frame for that specifically, Penny, just based on where things are at. And to be quite frank, COVID has kind of sidetracked us rapidly. But, the good news is that we have had an increase in our community staffing out on the West Coast, which includes not only home and community care staff, but also some additional mental health and substance use positions, as well as OT and PT. So those are all really important factors taking into consideration, and really looking at, you know, the previous space requirements going forward. And I know Sheila Ledbetter, who now has mental health and substance use for the Central North Island, so she's our executive director for our region, has actually forwarded that space plan to our director for mental health, just to ensure that we have included enough space for that growth in our staff as well. So we are still working on that, but there's no dates. There's no dates in line yet. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you for that. So now I have Director Steer, and then Director Bodner, and then Director Cole. So please go ahead, Director Steer.
Great. Thank you very much, Chris and Maria. I appreciate the presentation. And if it could be forwarded maybe to the rest of the directors, that would be wonderful, that slide, just for information purposes. I want to thank you once again for bringing forward the priority investment initiative to the ministry for the replacement of the Tofino General Hospital. I'm wondering, as you know, this has been going on for several years, and I'm wondering, as a regional body, is there supports, or in fact a lobbying mechanism that you see appropriate for the ACRD to help support this in moving forward?
So as an Island Health staff person who reports up through the Ministry of Health, I can't give you suggestions on how you might lobby for things. Certainly it is helpful that you know, that the RHD is starting to collect a bit of a reserve, and having that, and that reserve is towards a Tofino hospital replacement. That's probably positive. That's kind of what's being done at Cowichan District Hospital and the Cowichan Valley Regional Hospital District, as well as the North Island hospitals with the Comox Strathcona. So both those cases, they have started collecting reserves, so that when those projects go forward, and that just shows the interest of the community to replace that project. So that's just a couple of thoughts.
Great, and thank you. And just follow up into that, we will be speaking towards that reserve fund at our hospital board meeting. There's also on the West Coast an action group that I think there was a presentation, their vital document that was brought forward in support of I guess a replacement, but also a regional look at the delivery of health services onto the West Coast. And I do appreciate, as Maria spoke to, and I think I'll be giving an update later on at the Regional Hospital Board in terms of the staffing positions that have been sent out to the West Coast, in much appreciation. I do once again want to thank you for the presentation, and that and echo Director McNabb's sentiments about the expediency that we feel on the West Coast to having that facility being looked at in that priority investment approach. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Steer. That brings us to Director Bodner, and then Director Cole, and then Director McNabb.
Thank you. I'd just like to know what upgrades, Chris, you could tell us that's going to be done at the West Coast General Hospital.
Yes, so the project that we have lined up for West Coast General, like specifically around the emergency department or other areas?
Well, what the whole $6 million would be covering.
Okay, so I can speak generally. So we are looking to actually build an addition for additional exam beds, looking to create a better quiet room for mental health and those types of clients. We're looking to add, like review the entrance. The entrance right now is only one entrance, so our plans include two entrances: one for ambulance and the police, and the other one for everyone else. So those are examples of what's included in that project.
And I can just add to in doing that, we're really looking at how the patient flow goes through the department as well, and just really maximizing some of those safety aspects. So having a line of vision for nursing and physician staff to our waiting areas, and just improving some of those aspects as well. So that's all, those considerations are all part and parcel for that too.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Chris, I was wondering if you could stop the share in your upper middle there. There should be a little red button you can click to stop sharing. There we go. Cool. Okay, so next up I have Director Cole and then Director McNabb. Did I miss anyone? Seeing none. Go ahead, Director Cole.
I just have a question in the short term. Obviously, I do agree about the replacement of Tofino General. I think we all do. But as somebody who actually goes there daily, weekly for work myself, I'm wondering if in the short term there's going to be any adjustments or renovations surrounding better accommodation for mental health and substance use, as far as safe spaces and such in the short term, while it's still there and we're still using it.
So I can speak to some of that, Rochelle. Certainly those are all considerations that we're looking at. We are in the midst of doing some upgrades to some pieces of the building right now, as you're probably aware, with the implementation of brand new X-ray equipment there, upgrading our electrical in each of the patient rooms, and just looking at how we can maximize the space that we currently use. So it is an ongoing challenge, absolutely, for sure. And I think, you know, as challenging as it is sometimes having regional programs, the move to have more local executive director level oversight is definitely a step in the right direction, with Sheila Ledbetter having mental health and substance use for Central North Island. And that's really gonna support the focus in our region. And so, you know, newly under that change in structure, but really hopeful. And what we've seen absolutely supporting mental health and substance use on the coast as well is the inclusion of those new positions. So, you know, good news stories for sure.
So Marie, just to interrupt you there, Sheila Ledbetter,
Yes.
is she an executive director?
She is.
Okay, so is that someone who could come in and give a presentation at some point, or is that
You know what?
different level?
She could, but and in part of my little bit of updates is there's actually going to be an additional shift in our executive level structure. Is Sheila's going to continue to have Alberni Clayquat under her umbrella for approximately the next 3 months, but then we will be getting a new executive director. Shelley Gallant will be taking over responsibility for this region. And Shelley will have a smaller portfolio than what has historically happened here. So she will be responsible for Oceanside and Alberni Clayquat, as well as the home and community care or community health services strategy. So it's entirely up to this committee, this board, whether or not you want to wait and have Shelley do a presentation. I know she's very anxious to meet everybody and really get familiar with all things Alberni Clayquat. But
Okay.
absolutely they could, yeah.
Yeah, we may wait then, but thank you for that update. Next up, we have Dr. McNabb and then Dr. Cote.
Okay, I'd like to thank Marie and Chris for coming to our meeting and state that it's something that we need on a more regular basis, particularly Marie and her team, and for the daily operations and logistics of our hospitals and care centers. And the one thing that as an example of that I'd like some clarification on is the single site policy, where nurses are only allowed to work in one facility. This doesn't seem to apply to West Coast General Hospital. It does apply to Fir Park Echo and Rainbow Gardens. And it's been highly problematic in a staffing basis for those facilities. And so I'd just like to get the logistics of that from Marie, and an explanation of how that came about and what it means.
Certainly, and that is actually something that was set out by the province just for the times of COVID. So that has been mitigation plans that are put in place for our long-term care facilities. That does not negate, for example, if somebody were to work in an acute care setting and one long-term care setting, there is the ability for the staff to go back and forth in that respect, but they can't go to multiple long care settings in between those. And those were decisions that were made provincially with Dr. Bonnie Henry and the folks that are far more expert on epidemiology than I can say right now. But we have had, as all of you are aware, we have had a recent COVID outbreak at West Coast General Hospital, which I just want to assure everybody that, you know, the good news story is that we haven't had any new cases, positive cases. We are looking, if we continue things as they are status quo right now, at being able to declare that that outbreak over early next week. Yes, yeah, so yay. One message, if I could just ask all of you, if you could please really encourage folks who may be talking to you about, you know, if they're concerned about coming to West Coast General Hospital for care, for emergency, that we do have things in place, and we are still absolutely open to provide care to community members, and just really encourage people. The last thing we want to see is people not coming to access care because they're concerned. But, you know, things have gone relatively well. The staff here were fantastic in their response, and we've been having daily EOC meetings and continuing on with that. So I don't know, John, if that answered your question entirely around around moving from one facility to the next, but it was based on the epidemiology aspects.
Yeah, that seems to me a germ in the hospital is the same as the germ in a long-term care center. So moving nurses from the hospital to long-term care and back and forth, the impact seems to me to be.
Yeah, and sorry, they're not allowed to work in the same, like they have to have separate shifts.
No,
like they can't work for half a shift in the hospital and half a shift. And to be honest with you, I know that is the state within island health facilities. I don't know if that is the same in applying to our affiliate facilities, right? What the licensing structure is under those.
Yeah. It sounds like something we should get an answer to at some point so we can communicate it.
Yeah.
It does seem like, though, that communication's very poignant, because I do remember there were folks who let their conditions get more acute because they avoided going in, to say nothing of people who avoided the dentist and had to get a root canal after, which I think I'm headed down myself. So with that in mind, I think the last person I have here is Dr. Cote. So please go ahead.
Thank you. Just like to ask you about the COVID delivery, the vaccine delivery plan. Is there a freezer on Vancouver Island within Island Health? And do we have a plan to roll out that vaccine?
Chris, did you have anything? I do have a little bit of an update on that, but you can go ahead from a capital aspect if you've got any information.
I'm not directly, so I'm not directly involved. My Scott McCartan, my boss, is more involved. But there is a plan, and maybe Marie will speak to that. You know, so when you're asking for those really cold freezers, there are a few of them on the island, or if we don't, we're going to get that from a Provincial Health Services Authority. And so right now they're looking at with that Pfizer vaccine, as I hear in the news kind of thing, it can't be moved to a bunch of different facilities. It's kind of unstable, so they can only move it to a certain number of facilities, and so that's being taken into consideration in our planning. But Marie may have better information than I do.
So we actually spoke with the medical health officer this morning, Dr. Mike Benuzik, in regards to that. And we're still making plans as to what that's going to look like, Penny. You know, with the fact that it can't be moved from site to site, it could be very problematic if we're thinking about populations like our long-term care patients, residents that aren't easily transported to someplace else to be able to access vaccines. So those are all pieces that we are absolutely, you know, the health authority, along with the province, because it would certainly not be, you know, just an island health challenge, are working on.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's good news to hear that there is a plan to deal with the Pfizer vaccine. It seems like Canada's getting a varied suite of different vaccines as they come online. So I think that's something we'll have to keep track and listen to the provincial government and Island Health on. Yeah, so that's something that perhaps we'll continue to correspond on. Now, were there anyone else who wished to have any?
Just on that, is there opportunity for another vaccine then to come into our area? I'm not sure what the timeline is on for any of the other vaccines.
I actually we haven't had an update on that as of now, Penny. I think it's changing so rapidly, but as soon as we get you know, an update, and that's something too that might be of interest to this board, is to invite our medical health officer to one of the meetings, because he's got great information, and you know, and he's covering the Alberni-Clayoquot area specifically, and his knowledge in all things COVID. He was actually seconded to Fraser Health with their massive outbreak, and he has just returned to us after 2 months. So I'm sure he would be really happy about an invitation to come speak to all of you.
Awesome. So that would be Dr. Paul Hasselback's replacement?
Yes.
Okay,
and his name is Dr. Michael Benuzik.
Great. Thank you so much. Love your hair, Marie.
Oh, thanks.
Sorry, Chris, it hasn't grown anymore.
Okay.
Thank you. Good to see you.
It's really great to see you guys as well.
And on behalf of the board, thank you for coming, and we hope to see you again sooner than kind of annually. So let's look into that. Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, so that brings us to Heather Shobe with an update of Eden Tree on agricultural support initiatives, and you're really giving Director Cole a run for her money on the holiday decorations. So that's great. So please take it away. Oh, you are muted, however. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, if only my Christmas cactus there was blooming, it'd be a little more colorful, but thanks. It's great to be here and see everybody. If I might, I'm just going to say a special hi to Tom over in Tofino. He's an old friend and a colleague with the Coast Guard when I was working there. So it's great to see you, Tom, and I recognize that picture behind you. And I really appreciate the chance to talk to you all about the ACRD's agricultural initiatives. I just have a short presentation, and then I wanted to give you some time to ask questions and get your perspectives about ideas for the future and about the projects. And to start, I want to acknowledge all the work and the dedication of this board of directors and of ACRD staff in supporting food security and agriculture. You are one of the only regional districts in the province with dedicated resources for agricultural support. You really are leading the way, and the significance of the programs is recognized at the provincial level and by other regional districts and other agricultural organizations across the province. In Canada, agriculture is typically under federal and provincial jurisdictions, but municipal and regional and Indigenous governments also have a role in helping to localize the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, such as those for ending poverty, for decent work and economic growth, for life on land, sustainable cities, for industry innovation and infrastructure, and for responsible production and consumption. So I really do applaud your efforts, and I'm honored to be a part of this work in the regional district. We are in between two worlds right now. The COVID pandemic is going to create some long-term shifts likely, and we can't really even see clearly what that's going to look like just yet. We have, though, already seen significant increase in the profile, programs, and funding for regionalized food security and agriculture. And I do expect that there are going to be significant agricultural opportunities within COVID recovery funding over the next couple of years. So the ACRD is really well positioned to benefit from this funding as they're developed really strong networks within and some shared strategic priorities within the Coastal Agricultural Roundtable and the Agricultural Development Committee. I don't want to recap all of the details about the programs and activities today. The information is in the updated strategic plans that were included in your agenda packages, and also in the recent systems change report. But I am happy to answer your questions in a couple of minutes or later on if you want to reach out. Whether we receive the additional funding that we've requested from the Vancouver Foundation for our systems change project, or whether we don't, I do believe that we need to move forward with some key shifts in our programming. The ACRD really can't accomplish all that needs to be done to support food security, agricultural systems, acting, as a single body. We really need to be reaching out and focusing on supporting other organizations to increase their capacity, providing them with mentorship, ensuring that we have the strong tables for bridging and collaboration between all of the organizations, and supporting producers and those organizations as best we can. If we work together as with many strong organizations, we can accomplish so much than what the ACRD could do with just its own program. I wanted to share some ideas and some things that this board can do to continue to support and contribute to agricultural and food security growth in the region. So that could include things like supporting access to ACRD land for food production and farm businesses, supporting conservation programs that reduce wildlife and human interactions related to food production, bylaws that relate to agricultural land and agricultural buildings, supporting equity for producers who are sitting in these agricultural tables. And I really encourage you yourselves to also join into those agricultural tables or to send delegates from your own communities. It's also really, really important that we ensure that our programs are inclusive of Indigenous perspectives and traditional food sources. So in the last year, the ACRD was granted regional designation under the meat inspection regulations. Within 2 months, we had one producer that successfully received a Class D license for on-farm slaughter. Our region was chosen for the DOC Plus, which is the provincially funded food processing hub that provides critical infrastructure to marine and terrestrial producers and processors. Shelter Farm hosts a market gardener training program in partnership with North Island College. This fall, we distributed over $30,000 worth of local food to vulnerable hospital discharges through a partnership between Island Health and the Alberni Valley Transition Town Society, which was supported by the agricultural support worker, Anna Lewis. We have a coastal farm business that submitted a proposal for a significant food production initiative at the Long Beach Airport. And this board recommended the further review and consideration of that project. So these are some of the highlights from recent days. We are making progress. And again, I really appreciate your willingness and your drive to continue with this work. So yeah, I'm just happy to be here and answer any questions and see what you all have to say or to suggest.
Great, thank you, Heather. So that brings us to any comments or questions. Yeah, I have Dr. Haggard and then Dr. Steer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Heather, I just want to thank you and your organization for the Garden Starter Pack program. I thought it was a very successful program in the community, and also talked about it at our city council meeting. What a great initiative that it was. And I did take advantage of it. Some of the things didn't go as well as what I'd hoped they would, but it was a very good learning process for me. So hopefully I'll do better next summer. My question is, in your mission statement, your goal is to achieve 40% food sustainability in the community. Whereabouts are you at in that goal right now?
Great question, Deb. Thanks for that. One of the challenges we've had within our programming is to develop and implement really strong measurement and evaluation criteria. And that is because our budget is very narrow, and we've chosen to focus on our programs going forward. I know that there's another initiative in the Kootenay boundary, and when I told them our annual budget, they were like, whoa, that's what we paid just for the evaluation and monitoring component. So I don't have a specific answer. I know that on the island, there's a sense of about 5% local production. So we're very, very low. I did not draft the agricultural plan back in 2011 either. So I have heard from people that's a very ambitious target to get to 40%. So really we're working on moving forward, and every 1% that we can get is good news from my perspective.
Great, thank you, Heather.
Next up is Director Steer.
Well, we miss you on the West Coast, Heather, and I really did want to thank you very much for your new work, and the dedication that you brought to that position in terms of food security on the coast. I just wanted to echo with Director Haggard some the difficulties for organizations in general for those measurable goals in evaluation processes. It's just not exclusive to yourself. So I recognize the difficulties in that area. My one request would be, you had talked about the potential recommendations for a regional district to move forward. Would you be able to forward those in print to the directors? And I would also, since I've got the opportunity, maybe an invite to the district of Tofino at some point, maybe at a committee of the whole, to update on some of the initiatives that you guys have taken place on the West Coast. Thank you so much. Good to see you.
All right, thanks, Tom. Yes, I can forward some of those ideas, and I'll continue to try and share those as they come along. Yeah, I think presenting to various committees and municipalities and governments individually is great, and I will make sure to do that to make sure that's done in the future.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. Are there any other comments? Dr. Cote, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks, Heather, through the chair. This is a great summary of what's been accomplished, and really good crew that have participated. The committee, I'd like to acknowledge Director Shannon's on this also, and great work, and hopefully we'll be getting some of that grant money coming in the near future, and we'll be able to make bigger strides. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Looks like I have Director Bodner next.
Thank you. Heather, I was reading all the information there, and it was really, really detailed and very thorough, and I thank you for that. I'm just wondering if there, especially when people are not able to get out and be around this winter, I'm wondering if there is some way that there could be more advertising in the paper regarding more about agricultural support initiatives and what has been done and what people may be able to do in the springtime. So there was some kind of an article maybe put in there every once in a while, it would just kind of keep people thinking about it. So it could perhaps then maybe do something more in the spring.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. This actually came up at our Agricultural Development Committee yesterday in terms of publishing a new article in the AV News highlighting our initiatives, what we're working on and where we're going. And I suggested that that's something that we do launching into the next sort of phase in the new year. And also, I think that the communications is really important, and that's a piece that I think needs to be continued going forward. Communication with the public, with the producers, with the organizations. And again, that could eat up our entire budget, and more could just be in communication strategy. So we really try and do as much as we can with the resources we have. And a couple things to point you to, we do have the ACRD Warts on Your Fork Facebook page. So I welcome all of you to sort of like and share that. We also have an e-newsletter for agricultural, sort of commercial agricultural initiatives that is published about every month. And then there's the Grow Local program also has a newsletter that's published throughout the growing season and its own Facebook page. So that's more targeting residential producers. There are links to all of those on the ACRD website on the agricultural pages. So you guys can find the links there. And I do encourage you and welcome you to sign up and share information as it comes out to sort of help distribute the workload a little bit, I guess.
Great. Thanks for that. So, Director Shannon, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks, Heather, for your presentation today. I just had a question regarding the slaughter designations. I know that the letter got sent in November, just so the board's aware that went through from Heather. And I know that there is one farm that got their Class D. So I have two questions. One, do we know of any others that are going for that designation that you're aware of? And two, I know that the next step for that can be struggles with insurance. Just so the board's aware, can you speak to anything else on that? And I don't know, maybe staff can answer if there's anything, how we could help. I don't know if that's even in our wheelhouse as a board, but if you could speak to that, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Tanya. And the regional designation really is huge. That was highlighted by our producers as one of the two top priorities, the other being access to water, which is also something that we're working on in the ACRD Council for Agricultural Supply coming up next year. So one farm did receive the Class D license. There have, one of the requirements of that is to do a whole food safety and facility plan and to participate in what's called the slaughter safe training. And that was put on by Island Health, and the Alberni Farmers Institute has been really working hard to convene these events. So there were two training sessions that were held this year, one in the summer and one in October, I think. And so a number of people have completed the training and are working towards getting designation. I know that some did have plans in the works. And then what has happened is that part of the recommendation that the Ministry of Agriculture has put out included transferring the regulatory authority for the meat inspection regulations entirely to the Ministry of Agriculture, whereas before the Class D and E, the on-farm slaughter, was controlled by the Ministry of Health. So that change did occur on December 1st, and effectively that sort of we're not sure what's going to happen now, because the Ministry of Agriculture now will come up with their own processes for on-farm slaughter and for Class D and E licenses, and they're still looking at all of the feedback they've had from across the province, and they may change those classes of license entirely. So it's still a big kettle of fish. But I do know that some local, at least one has actually received the designation, and others have applied or are in the process of applying. Insurance is a huge challenge for producers. I know it must be for many different industries and businesses. I know for producers, it is a huge challenge. The rates for insurance for producers have gone up substantially just over in the last number of years. And now for a producer to get insurance to slaughter on farm, of course, and being a new thing within this region, those costs could be significant. As for how you can help, I guess that's not really in my wheelhouse either. I think it's the challenges with insurance are probably bigger than just the agricultural community, but they are definitely there in the agricultural community. And I think it's something that people do have to keep talking about, and hopefully leading to some changes, because you can't get the ability to do the slaughter on farm and then have this associated cost that now makes it impossible. So it's challenges continue, but I know the work towards solving these challenges continue, and thank you to the board for all that you've done to support that particular issue for producers.
Okay. All right. Well, on that note, on behalf of the board, I'd like to thank you for your update. And I took some extensive notes, and I may be following up with some questions and ideas later. All right. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And I'd be happy to talk to anyone individually later on. Thanks for having me.
Okay. Thanks. Okay. So that brings us to finally a presentation from the Community Liaison Employment Center Coordinator for Work BC in regards to a West Coast Local Labor Market Information Project. And I don't know how to pronounce your last name, Ursula. Is that?
It's Bank, Ursula Bank. Thank you.
Just Bank. So please take it away.
Thank you to the chair and directors for giving me this opportunity to present on behalf of the West Coast Workforce Advisory Committee and Island Work Transitions, Inc., and speak about a regional workforce planning strategy and the West Coast Local Labor Market Information Project. Island Work Transitions, Inc. owns and operates the Alberni Valley Employment Centers in Port Alberni, Tofino, and Ukulele. We've provided employment services to job seekers and employers within the Alberni-Clayoquot region since 2007. Prior to that, it was Steele O'Neill that provided the services. So over the past 20 years, we've seen significant changes in the West Coast economy. Those changes have affected our region's ability to balance demand and supply issues within the workforce. Since March 2020, job postings have been lower than normal compared to previous years. Under the constraints of COVID-19, we see the number of job postings continue to decline each month. Low job seeker demand and declining employer demand are occurring at the same time. This decline in the labor market is rare and unusual and cause for concern. The ongoing weekly changes to the provincial COVID restrictions are creating an environmental and economic uncertainty. Many local businesses here have had to close or scale down their operations to the point of laying off their employees. Their concern is not having a workforce ready to work once the restrictions are lifted in January. A side note to that was one of our members pointed out that the restrictions will lift as of January 8th, expectations, right? And then once the restrictions are up, we on the West Coast or Pacific Rim, Albertan Clackwood Regional District will be swamped with all the snowbirds and the people wanting to come to a more temperate climate. So that's just a side note to that. So it's a real concern that they're losing their infrastructure due to this contraction. So there is a pressing need. We need to take a regional and collaborative approach to develop and implement a short and long-term workforce strategy. As stakeholders, we want to work together regionally to recover our local economy from the impacts of this pandemic. We plan to start with developing a tool to measure the current health of our local economy. Currently, when collecting and reporting local workforce data, as we've done in the past, we found that most traditional sources have proven to be outdated, unreliable, and contain distorted factors that don't really reflect actual numbers for our region. So to address the local workforce supply and demand issues, we've organized an advisory group of stakeholders who want to take this regional and collaborative approach in solving the problem. Our first step was to gather the stakeholders and then to develop the West Coast Local Labor Market Information Project. This project aims to work with local businesses and community organizations to create an evidence-based decision-making tool, a living document that measures fluctuations, and to create effective strategies that align with workforce supply and demand. This project contributes to economic recovery and workforce stability and enables us to identify and measure local labor market indicators, such as economic activity, occupations and wages, hours of work, working poverty, self-employed, underemployed, unemployed, education, knowledge, skills, and abilities in all sectors, as well as labor, housing, transportation, and childcare issues. If you can't get childcare, everything else falls apart. If you are a parent or a guardian. The project also contributes to the definition of the characteristic and current status of the local workforce, employers, and job seekers alike. So developing alignment strategies to respond effectively to the workforce changes and its fluctuations. The work plan has two phases. The short term, phase one, creates the database, the living tool, to measure local labor market indicators. It's a 6-month project to identify indicators and develop the database, the document, and we hope to start January 2021, and the cost of the project is $18,000. The strategy, the short-term phase, is to really help prepare as much as possible for the summer season. And this is the tourism season that we're talking about. Long-term phase, monitoring and evaluating local indicators, developing alignment strategies, reviewing them and revising them, and reporting actual regional workforce conditions on a regular basis to all the bodies, all of our partners. Project sustainability, partnerships to include stakeholder organizations, Clackwood Biosphere Trust, for their vital signs report, and working with local jurisdictions and integrate with their current economic recovery strategies for the entire region. So we're obviously going to be asking for funding, which is really difficult to do at this time because everybody has been overextended, so including the governments. So what we're doing is we're speaking on the return on investments. As we are asking each local government to assist with funding this project, funding this project, the level of interorganizational collaboration and in-kind contribution for this project will ensure that our partners receive a valuable return on investment. For example, the data and decision-making tools generated from this project will be designed to inform planning process and to develop sustainable economic strategies. And a side note to that is also exercise our filtering ability with the Sustainable Strategy Development Goals number 8 under employment. So we have to date 3 letters of support, and I've sent copies to your administrator. Clackamas Biosphere Trust, the Tofino Long Beach Chamber of Commerce, the Ukulele Long Beach Chamber of Commerce, and as well, we are in the process of getting letters of support from all our stakeholder members of the advisory group. And what is Island Work Transitions Inc. going to be contributing to this project? Because they are proposing to be the lead. They've been identified as the lead. We will continue to provide the following in-kind contribution: project coordination, implementation, completion, communication, administration, and accounting. And then also project continuity for the stakeholders, organize, facilitate, record, and report meetings. So, and now before I close, what are we asking for? On behalf of the West Coast Labor Market Information Project, we would like to request a letter of support for this project, to participate as a stakeholder and member of the West Coast Advisory Committee, Workforce Advisory Committee. And we are asking each government to share in the cost of what they can afford. As I mentioned before, total cost of funding the first phase is $18,000. Project completion in June, starting in January of 2021. And we have a commitment from the District of Tofino for $9,000. Plus we have a participation and representatives sitting on our membership, advisory membership. And then District of Ukulele, we've just recently provided them with a presentation, and we are currently waiting for the response. So this completes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you again.
Okay, thank you for your presentation, Ursula. So are there any other comments or questions? Director Haggard and then Director Steer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hi, Ursula. How are you? Haven't seen you for a while. I think one of the biggest hindrances, and I'm sure we're all aware, for employers to attract employees to the area is the lack of a housing or affordable housing, to be more specific. So are you taking that into consideration at all in your studies?
Exactly. Those are the type of things that this project will include as a feed to the indicators. If you don't have housing, where are the employees going to live? If you don't have childcare, then what? Or transportation, then what? So we're proposing to integrate with all that is going on to be able to identify, okay, so now we need to look at that and weigh them. And so that would be some of the considerations included in the project, yes.
Yeah. May I ask another question, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Have you considered doing something like this for the Port Alberni community as well, or just strictly for the West Coast?
Well, I asked that question of my supervisors, and at this point we were starting small, starting grassroots. But as we are connected, many of the West Coast businesses rely on workers coming from Port Alberni and vice versa. So I would say, you know, for the contribution that we're asking for, I would say to consider the entire Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District. And then I'll have to answer to my supervisors by saying that.
Okay, thank you for that. Director Steer, please go ahead.
Thank you, Ursula. Good to see you, of course. I just want to, I think most of those, I just provide a comment. I think those questions were that I had were answered succinctly there. I just wanted to acknowledge that the significance of this initiative And the support from the stakeholders that Ursula mentioned is very strong, and it's well understood within those stakeholder groups that without good data, good decisions cannot be made. And I think that's one of the emphasis that Ursula has been talking about, and it's something that many of the stakeholders, including the district of Tofino, is interested in knowing, so that we can make the best decisions we can with the most up-to-date relevant information. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Steer. Are there any other comments? Dr. Shannon, go ahead.
Thank you. More of a question. You in your presentation and in the paperwork that we got in our agenda package, you're working with local businesses and community organizations for funding that you're looking for this project. Are you doing anything provincially, like with Work BC or Community Futures or anything like that? Thank you.
Thank you, Director Shannon. Yes, that is the strategy moving forward is whenever you go to the province, they want to know what is your in-kind contribution to the project. So, and what we're trying to do is create from the bottoms up. The $18,000 is the seed money, and that will be our in-kind contribution. The long-term phase will allow time, because right now many of our organizations, for example, the Clackamas Biosphere Trust, they have committed all of their funds to developing a new center and proceeding with creating the bricks and mortar of that new center. And I'm also in the process of looking at opportunities that are probably forthcoming for tourism. And so I have experience with applying to provincial funds successfully for the District of Ukulele for their Ukulele Business and Employment Expansion and Retention Project, UBER short term. And we were able to get $98,000 from the provincial government for that project. That's through BC Rural Dividend Fund. However, right now, all of those funds have been earmarked for the northern forest industry segment. So we will be lobbying. And this is why we also are needing to have partners from the sitting at our table that can help lobby. The needs are all across the province, and the sectors that we represent, going back to, yes, we are looking at representing the entire region and all sectors. It's very ambitious, and it won't be me doing it. It will be an organization at that time, but we are still in the, we'll say, informal category, the network that is collaborating. And then from that could come a formal body being developed to receive this. I don't know, this is just my vision, but I'm looking at other planning, workforce planning strategies across Canada. And I see the models are out there, and they are targeting mostly sort of a regional approach. And so most of them are having difficulties in isolating numbers, accurate figures for the communities within their regions. So this is where I took the frameworks of the models and helped develop this project.
Thank you for that. So I think from this stage, what I'd like is if you could have a template letter support maybe sent in our direction, because I think right now I'll ask if directors are willing to entertain a motion for giving a letter of support for this work. Director McNabb and Director Cole, any comments?
No, I'd move that we send a letter of support with regards to this.
Thanks. And Director Cole, do you, Bob, you got it? Okay, so seconded. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Dr. Cote.
Thank you. I do support this. I think that a lot of the initiatives that are being talked about here for housing, transportation, job security is all being talked at the health network as well. And I do see that Marcy DeWitt is one of the members on this group. So yeah, I do support this, and I think there's a lot of information out there that can be tapped into. So I think it's important. I also like to know if any of the COVID funding that's coming our way could be directed to an initiative like this.
So I would like to respond to that. Was the initial thought, was that there would be funding out there for the what we say the quick response to the immediate effects of the COVID. I mean, there are going to be interim and long-term effects from this as well. So realizing that, it's right now I don't see where the funding pockets are. It looks like they're coming, but I don't see them there. We approached the ICE-T, the Island Coastal Economic
Trust.
Thank you. Yeah. They said there were no funds available. And we approached Community Futures, and they said funds were delivered, but delivered directly to the chambers, who have already committed those funds to other projects. So this is something we're at meeting number 5. We meet on a monthly basis, and we will continue to meet on a monthly basis until we can realize the project. But in the meantime, I'm scouring, and if anybody has any information, I'd appreciate them contacting me or linking to me that information.
Thank you for that. And thank you for your question, Director Cote. So we still have a motion on the floor in regards to a letter of support. Any further comments to that motion? Seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Great.
Mr. Chair, may I make a comment to Ursula?
Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ursula, I was wondering if you could maybe talk to your bosses at the Career Center and ask if they could consider including Port Alberni as well, because we do also have employer issues. And I think if you could do it as a whole unit for the entire region, I think it would have a much better impact and much better information as we do all kind of tie in together. And if they agree to that, maybe make a presentation also to the city of Port Alberni and get a letter supported from them as well.
Could you please repeat that, Debbie?
Yeah, if you could also make and if they agree to doing it as a whole entire region, then maybe you could make a presentation to the city council, to the city of Port Alberni as well.
Got action item number 2.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I will add action item number 3. So in regards to any monetary support that may be forthcoming, we do have a deadline for applications to our grants and aid program. So that would be at the end of January, I think, at the very latest. So there is information on our website in regards to that, or you could reach out to our staff in regards to that itself. So that would be a way that we can consider that as a whole board. On behalf of the board, I'd like to thank you for your presentation. And I think what we'll do is we will maintain contact to see if there are ways that we can continue to work together. Having labor information up to date is very important, especially since there are so many components that lead to indicating whether or not a labor market is healthy or not. And the various things that we can do to change it, we need to know what those results are fairly quickly. So once again, thank you. And we will talk to you again.
Thank you very much. And I will commit to continue to keep the Alberni Clark Regional District directors informed.
Great. Thank you. Okay, so that brings us to item number 6, which is, the adorable director. to item number 7, which is correspondence for information. I would like to pull something out myself, but would anyone like to do that first? Dr. Shannon, please go ahead.
Thank you. I thought it was really exciting that the city got funding from ICE-T, and if either Director Haig or Dominions could kind of expand on what's happening down at the Harbor Key with that money.
Absolutely. So we worked on this project over the summer through COVID to try to put in some somewhat temporary for now, but we are looking for more permanent options. Just covered seating and common seating areas in the Harbor Key, at the Harbor Key. We have some work to do down there still with lighting and kind of securing the areas a little bit more, but generally we're just looking to try to reconfigure the Harbor Key a little bit so that we can allow for more outdoor seating areas, and it's been a vision of ours for a while anyways. So this COVID has kind of made a great opportunity for us to change how we're kind of viewing the Harbor Key. So more to come. These funds, it was reasonably minimal funding, but it allowed us to make some changes now, and we're going to be kind of using it as a test to see how it went for the community and do more permanent options for next year.
Sounds great. Okay, and the only other thing that I would like to pull out is just the congratulations sent from the RDN. I feel like this may be an opportunity for political reach out and maybe talking with them in regards to various other items that may be of mutual interest to our 2 regional districts. So I'm wondering if I could ask for do I need permission to send a letter back thanking? And since I would note that this fellow is also newly elected chair, we can probably congratulate as well.
Sure.
Go ahead.
I'd move that we respond to their letter, encourage them to live up to their commitment
of maintaining good relationships. How about that?
That's right.
Thank you. Dr. Roberts, seconding. Are there any comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? Motion carried. Thank you. And yeah, we can just put something together that says thank you and congratulations to the new chair himself as well, and maybe asking for maybe a bit of a meeting. And you can just put my digital signature on that right away. Okay, so we do have a motion to receive the items for information. Director Cote?
Thank you. Just a question about item E, page 53 to 55 on BC Transit restart funding.
Yeah.
Does staff know if that will affect our area? So it doesn't really specifically pull us out. And will that also cover Handy Dart?
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, it looks like our share is going to be about $47,000, and that will be for our Handy Dart system. That's what it looks like at this point in time.
Okay, thank you for that. Any further comments? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Now, Wendy, did I forget to do the motion for the actual letter? No, did that pass?
No, I think we've got that. Thank you.
We got that? Okay.
Yes.
So I just didn't put a check mark down, so that was my fault. Okay, that brings us to item number 8, which is 8A is a request for decision in regards to the ACRD board committee and financial plan meeting schedule. So Dr. Cote, please go ahead.
Thank you. On page 57, there's a correction. The AVICC is not canceled for 2021. It's canceled for in-person only.
Okay. So that may have an impact on meetings during that week. Is it 3 days as well? Will that be during the week or over the weekend like before?
We haven't decided yet. Meeting this Friday.
Okay. Okay, so we'll stay tuned and we'll make changes as needed then. Personally, I would note I'm going to have difficulty attending the 2 Thursday meetings, but outside of that, everything's fine for me. But if no one has any comments, like I'm not going to try to move those. If other folks can make it, then they can make it. So we can just move it once people are ready to move on. Oh, hope your finger's okay, Director Roberts. It's okay. Okay, Director Haggard.
I'd like to move that the Alberta Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors approve the 2021 ACRD Board Committee and Financial Plan meeting schedule as presented.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Bodner. Does anyone have any comments? Go ahead, Director Shannon.
Thank you. I know that it's mentioned in there for the financial planning process, we're going to try and go how we did it this previous year. Did staff have any more information on what that might look like COVID wise? And I mean, if all it is what's written in the summary, fair enough. But just thought if there was anything else. Thanks.
Mr. Chair, it's really up to the board. What we had in mind when we were looking at this from a ability to get together, even before the late item that's coming up today, was really limiting it primarily to Zoom presentations, etc. And certainly there's the item that appears upon every agenda that where people want to participate in the meeting by way of asking questions. Of course, that remains available as well. We don't want to rely on this, but there has been, surprising in my view, very little interest historically about the financial planning process at the Alberta Clayoquot Regional District. And so as much as I find it exciting and engaging, others may not. And but we will certainly take board direction if there's anything that that you think would serve the public conversation better than what we've got in here. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? Dr. Cote and then Director Steer.
Thank you. My community actually does like talking about having the presentation regarding the budget. It's always been in person at the Community Association AGM, and it's gone over very well. People can have questions answered. There's been some wonderful presentations regarding recycling, airport. You know, there's been lots of very strategic projects that we have been involved with that have been presented to the public where they could ask, and then they can also understand what the budgeting, how it's budgeted and why there's a cost to it. I'd really like to continue with that. I have talked with Terry about doing a presentation virtually for the AGM. So we've already planned that. So what I would like to see in this calendar though is the different readings of the budget so that it's understood there as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Cote. Director Steer.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm the newest member and scheduling, as you may notice, I'm often wearing a blue uniform when I'm in these. And so timing is often a difficulty due to my day job. And not for this year, obviously, coming just briefly, but I don't know, in the past, has the board entertained having meeting times that would coincide maybe with after work hours, say after 4 p.m. It's just a suggestion at this point, and I know I'm very new and do not want to disrupt schedules at all. Just wanting to know if historically that had been a consideration of the board.
I think that's certainly something that we can entertain. There are functions of the board that would play merry havoc with me as a parent if it was held after hours, but also the budget is also kind of tackled at a West Coast Committee, AV Committee, and EA Directors Committee level as well. So those can be individualized too, depending on availability there. I would talk with Terry and Douglas about what can be done to suit your individual needs as well. And 3 people put their hands up though, so I'm kind of worried that I missed them all. So if you could put your hands up again, that'd help me immensely. Thank you, Dr. Cote. Douglas, I'll let you go first, Douglas. No, did I miss anybody else?
I was just going to remind the board that periodically the board has had evening meetings starting around 6:30, something like that, sort of an open house format. And they've, well, to be blunt, they haven't been well attended. We've also as staff have been happy to go out to the various municipal partners, to various council meetings, et cetera, and are pleased to do that again this year. Of course, this year it'll be virtual, but we'd absolutely make ourselves available in whatever combination of staff suits the conversation needs of the communities.
Great. Okay, Director Cote.
Thank you. Showing my years on the board again. The regional district board meetings used to be starting at 6 p.m. And ran well into the evenings. It was changed to the daytime because of people like yourself that had a long drive back to the West Coast. When a meeting ends at 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night, it's problematic for trying to get home safe and sound. So the board meetings were switched to the daytime. I do have my community meeting though. The Community Association AGM is in the evening at 7 o'clock, and it is very well attended. Just that's from my perspective. Thanks.
Thanks. I think the specific community associations may have their own inertia to them, a positive momentum, as opposed to kind of the inert inertia that the ACRD tends to have. I know that the Bamfield Community Association tends to be quite lively as well. Are there any other comments on? Okay, seeing none. So we do have a motion that was passed or moved by Director Haggard, seconded by Director Bodner on the thing. So all those in favor? All opposed? Okay, motion carried. Thank you very much. And that brings us to bylaw request. So looks like water system local service area amendment. So I don't know who to call on for that. So maybe
I could speak to that one briefly, Mr. Chair.
Okay, please go ahead.
So this bylaw was presented at our last board meeting and received 3 readings. And if it's approved, this amending bylaw will bring in 2 properties into the Beaver Creek Water Service Area, 7685 Beaver Creek Road and 7620 Bainbridge Road. So the bylaw is now presented for consideration of adoption, and director consent was required from the participants of the area. So that's Director McNabb, and he's given his consent. So if adopted, these properties will be part of the service area.
Okay, Director McNabb.
So one question of Ms. Brune on this is, are these 2 properties liable for development cost charge on them?
No, they wouldn't. If they develop now, because the bylaw is in place, then the charges would be applicable, but it's just moving forward. And the DCC bylaw has only been in place for a year and 2, maybe year and a half, 2 years. So I don't know if there was development on either of those properties within that time frame. That's a good question.
Yeah, what I'm worried about is the timeline, because these weren't both these properties weren't at one time. One was 2015. Our development cost charge bylaw has been in place for at least 3 years. And I think one of these properties for sure was hooked up after that. But in that they're both coming into the service area, that I think that might be the timeline we're looking at versus the timeline of when the construction had taken place. But nevertheless, I'll move the motion that the Albany Claycourt Regional District Board of Directors adopt bylaw E1054-1, cited as Beaver Creek Water System Local Service Area Amendment 2020.
We have a seconder. Thank you, Director Roberts. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Great. Okay, so that brings us to item C, which is the ACRD strategic plan. Douglas, did you want to take this one? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the board has got together, the members of the board have got together with a consultant to lead them through a strategic planning process. And through that process, the board has come down to the document that you have in front of you. Now, the document would get more formalized with some graphics, etc. But the purpose of today's report is to talk about the content, and we would also like to get some specific direction from the board with respect to the targets. Our recommendation is when we're talking about the deliverables, the measurables that come out of the areas that the board has deemed most important, that be done in concert with a financial plan. And the reason for that, of course, is that the board would want to consider what resources would be required in order to accomplish various goals, and create those resources and opportunities for staff to undertake those things in order for the plan to be successful. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to take any questions.
Great. Let's open it up. Any comments or questions, please? Sorry, Director Haggard, I just missed you. Please go ahead. And then Director Shannon. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When I was going through this, I noticed that there's a bit of a contradiction in our strategic plan. On page 73, where it says our future, and the third paragraph, it says we have reliable cellular and broadband connectivity across the region. But if you look under objectives 1.3, it says advocate the senior government and private sector for improved internet and cellular service to remote underserviced areas of the region. So it's kind of contradicting what we're stating there.
Yeah, that's because it's the vision for the future. Like, this is what we will be at some point.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We might want to be more explicit with that, like saying, and I don't like picking a number of years, but like in X years we will, although that's in and of itself a target. Maybe we'll put our vision for the future so that folks know that it's an aspirational thing, not necessarily what exists now. Yeah. Thanks for that, though. That will help with the communication of the plan. Okay. Sorry about that. Director Shannon.
Thank you. I just wanted to just make note that under specific areas of attention, when we look at strategies 5.1 and 5.4, I just wanted to let staff know that that's how I understand those strategies as well, just to have a little bit of feedback there, how it's worded. And then I completely agree with trying to establish targets as we look at the budget to see what our resources are going to be. And then I had, now that Director Haggard brought it up, and I know when we were working on this too, I had mentioned that like using a present tense or past tense when we're talking about our vision, because it can get a little bit confusing. And when we talk about our future, I would like to see maybe a more future tense writing used, so we hopefully mitigate some of that confusion of what we would like to see if somebody just jumps in and says, oh, we're doing this, and it's like, well, no, we're not, that's our vision. But just to try and alleviate that a little bit. Thank you.
There are definitely grammatical ways of communicating it a little more clearly. May take up some more copy space, but I don't think we'll have to worry about that. We can gussy it up pretty good. Director Shannon, again, go ahead.
Thank you, sorry. And I had one more thing I wanted to mention. I just wanted to ask, because it says under that should we approve the content today, that there are going to be additional materials in the strategic plan, such as information about the region, information about directors, message from the chair, graphics, etc. Is that something that Brian is doing, or is that expected of staff to be doing? Thank you.
Go ahead, Douglas.
So the letter from the chair, that we would work with the chair to prepare something that reflects the chair's sentiments at this time and on this occasion. With respect to graphics, we would start passing over all the graphics that we have from around the region to the consultant, and some of the statistical information. We would pass that along as well.
Okay, with that in mind, are there any other? Oh, thank you, Director Cote. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Through the chair to to us all. Page 81, partnerships and alignments. I'm just wondering why community partnerships weren't included. So it's all, there's no mention of community partnerships.
Like associations and that sort of thing?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Or developers, or, there's a multitude of other besides government.
Mr. Chair, I'm looking at the goal, and the goal reads as to achieve mutual benefits partnering with First Nations, local governments, and community partners, sharing and leveraging our resources and aligning our efforts towards common goals. So that's how we read that. Is there something more that would be useful there?
I guess it would be like a 5.5.
Yeah, so I think part of yeah. So I would note that there's inter and intra. So I think having specific like organizational and associational ties would be something that we could put in regards to, because I'm thinking of like organizations that exist that are part of the community. And there's so many of them that we send representatives to, but it doesn't also include churches or the Sally Ann, that kind of stuff.
Service clubs.
Yeah, exactly. So I think if we can have that as a catch-all and have that as coordinating across, because some of those organizations actually have their initiatives that are already interjurisdictional, and so there's things that we can do there too. I don't see that as being particularly controversial either. I think it's just an oversight. So I think what I might be more comfortable with doing is maybe agreeing that we'll put that in there and then just have someone put in according to our conversation now, and maybe check with Director Cote and the rest in regards to the specific wording. I don't want to get too minute. So, associations, organizations such as service clubs and nonprofits organizations would be kind of where I'd leave it, because we want it to be enabling and wide.
Thank you.
I am personally largely happy with how it's written so far. The target conversation, I think, is going to be one in which we do need to have the budget conversation, but also kind of a longer term budget conversation, especially when we're talking about things like appropriate capital reserves. For me, that's something we grow over multiple terms of office, not just in the next X number of years. Ideally, I'd like it to have some of our capital reserves back up to like $6 million, but that's not something I'm looking to do in the middle of a COVID and post-COVID world. So the pull and the stretch are something that I would definitely like to make sure that folks like Director McNabb and Director Cote and Director Shannon have their kind of fingers on the pulse of, like, how much is enough and how much is too much. And I think that's important, with the idea that we're committing to a timeline for getting to some target by some date. Not knowing what recovery looks like, but also pretty sure we're not just going to get millions of dollars from the feds, even though we should. That's something that I'd like to see. So, but I think that's a finance-based discussion across the calendar that we just agreed to. Are there any other comments? And if not, if we're comfortable with accepting the amended strategic plan, that would be great. That being said, this is just the copy. It's not the pretty version, and doesn't have everything we're going to have. Director Holmes or Mr. Holmes, please go ahead.
Mr. Chair, so we're planning very much to take this content and put it into the public-facing version with the graphics, et cetera. Of course, as you know, you'll be seeing we'll be working with you on your draft letter, et cetera. But I'm wondering if plan as attached amended for
clarity,
future tense language for our vision, and reference to community partners in one of the strategies as an amendment to the recommendation for clarity. So we capture that.
I think that fits the conversation that we just had. If that suits the board, then please, let's go ahead. Director Cote.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Director Cote. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Cole. Nice and easy to write. Any further comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Great. So once we get through onto planning matters, I might call for a quick bio break before we do planning matters, because, yeah. That brings us to item D, which is the Fire Protection Services Agreement between Hupatchessit and Sprout Lake. Cool. Hi, Heather.
Thank you. So this is a fire services protection agreement for the Hupatchessit First Nation. It will allow for Sprout Lake Fire Department to provide structural fire protection on the Klikoot IR number 2 for a term of 5 years. So we're just asking the board to authorize the chair and the CAO to enter into the agreement.
Director Cote.
Thank you. I would like to make the motion that the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors enter into a fire protection service agreement with the Hupatchessit First Nation for the Sprout Lake Volunteer Fire Department to approve structural fire protection services to Klikoot Indian Reserve number 2 for a 5-year term, and authorize the chair and chief administrative officer to enter into the agreement on behalf of the regional district.
Thank you, Director McNabb. Okay, any further comments? I had a question. I guess their IR1, is that a relationship with Beaver Creek or with the city?
City of Port Alberni.
It's city? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, with all that, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Great. And that brings us to the Long Beach Electoral Area Emergency Plan, item E.
Great. Thank you. So I'm very happy to present the Long Beach Emergency Plan for the board's consideration. So this has been a long outstanding plan that we've needed to get in place. So the regional district hired Sybil Sanderson to develop the plan. As part of the plan development, we engaged residents, agencies, other governments. We did a tour of the electoral area this summer with Director Roberts so that we could get a strong understanding of the needs of each of the specific areas in the electoral area. We looked at each of the individual hazards, talked to residents, understood what they needed. So the emergency plan is attached, but I would say that the emergency plan and improving it is just the first step that we need to take to develop an emergency program for the Long Beach electoral area. So in budgeting for 2021, we need to give consideration for a volunteer emergency program coordinator on the West Coast, or potentially 2, who would receive an honorarium. This is the model that we have in Banfield, and we'd be looking to replicate that in Long Beach. And then developing an emergency preparedness program for residents is really important to, help educate the residents about the hazards in their area and about what they need to do to become prepared and resilient in their individual communities, as many of these communities are very isolated and on their own. So that's the plan attached. We also have guidelines that are coming, but they do not need to be approved by the board. And I would be happy to answer any questions.
Director Roberts, did you want to go first?
Yes, through the chair. Thanks for that, Heather, and also a thank you to Sybil for the work that she's put into this. It's, as you mentioned, still a work in progress, so we've got a ways to go yet, but it's certainly a good draft. And an initial development of the program is moving forward, which I'm really happy to see. So if there's no other questions on it, or when there are, I'm prepared to move that recommendation.
Let's just move it now. Director Roberts, do you so move?
That the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District approve the Long Beach Emergency Plan as stated. Thank you.
Thank you. And I have Director Cole as a seconder. So I have one question potentially for Heather or maybe for Terry in regards to the spending authority procedures. Is that just something that we would put in the whereases, like we have to just invoke a certain part of provincial law or to spend for responding to these things, or should we have our own reserve set up, or both? It's maybe a future conversation during budgeting.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add there. Doug, did you want to tackle that?
Well, the Local Government Act provides for no unbudgeted expenditures by a regional district except in emergency circumstances. It does not go on to define emergency circumstances, but I think that the Act and the legislation provides for local deference in that regard.
Yeah.
Also, what we tend to try to do is get a task number for a disaster so that an undertaking that costs money will be covered by that task number. So we try very hard to get that number in hand before we make any expenditures, etc. So that's generally procedure on those two items. So hopefully we're spending provincial money responding to a disaster rather than local money.
Yeah. Okay, that was my concern.
It's my understanding, if I may, through the chair, that there is a task number assigned once a year for local governments to cover some of these expenses, and I believe that's what Sybil had mentioned. Is it not, Heather?
I may have missed that. Yeah.
No, there's a specific task number for every emergency. With COVID, it's a bit different. They gave one task number for all local governments, and they gave one task number for First Nations. But I wouldn't say that's the normal process. We need to phone in each time and get a specific task number.
Okay.
So I was thinking just in terms of training sessions and so on.
Oh, okay. Could be, yeah.
Yeah. I just feel like we should set up some sort of Jordan's principle for some of these things, especially since it's going to happen more often with fires and floods. That's political though. So I'm really happy with this plan. That's very close to the Banfield plan though. So I quite like it. So if there are any other comments, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate this has all been said, but I just wanted to take a moment to thank Heather very much for her leadership on this. And I would like to also observe Director Roberts is heavily involved with this process. I was quite alarmed when I first got here in 2017 to find out some of the region wasn't covered with an emergency plan. Anyway, through staff stops and starts, etc., it's taken a little while to get here, but I'm pretty excited that we're here. Thank you.
Great. Okay, with that, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Awesome. Okay, and finally we have a light item for item F, which is the item on open meetings. So I'm hoping, Wendy, you can just present on what's been sent out.
Yes, I can. So this was sent out by email to all directors. Hopefully you received it. So with the increased number of COVID cases in British Columbia, the provincial health officer has amended the order on gatherings and events. Part of this order affects local governments. All local government meetings and public hearings are now to be held, and this is open meetings, without public present. They're also strongly encouraging directors and staff as well to participate in meetings electronically and not in person. So in order to comply with that, we need to rescind a resolution that the board passed on September 9th. On the 9th, we had passed that we had different options for holding meetings, full Zoom, partially in person. So we need to rescind that one. So I've presented that for rescinding. And then a new one needs to be passed. basically in order with the ministerial order M192, just saying that we're going to hold our meetings electronically, and how the public will have an opportunity to participate and provide input. And we recommend that this go to the end of January, and then we'll reassess where things are at, and staff will keep checking the provincial health officer sites to see if any changes.
Okay, Cal, I'll get to you right after. Because this is sometimes controversial, I thought what I'd do is I'd read out the motion and move it myself, and then we'd have a seconder. So it's in your materials here. So it states that the recommendation is that the Alberni-Clyde Regional District Board of Directors rescind the following resolution passed at the September 9th, 2020 regular Board of Directors meeting. And this is quoting that motion that states that despite bylaw A1075, Alberni-Clyde Regional District ACRD Board of Directors procedures bylaw and the terms of reference for ACRD committees, authorization be given to the board and the committee chairs and the vice chairs to consult with the corporate officer to determine the method for holding board and committee meetings during the COVID-19 pandemic while adhering to public health order requirements and ministerial order 192 as follows: full Zoom meetings or hybrid meetings or in-person meetings. So that's what would be rescinded. And then that the Alberni-Clyde Regional District passed the following new resolution in order to comply with the December 2nd, 2020 Provincial Health Officer Order on gatherings and events. And it states that in accordance with Ministerial Order M192 and to continue to protect the health and safety of staff, elected officials, and the public during the COVID-19 pandemic, all Alberni-Clyde Regional District open board and committee meetings shall be held without members of the public in attendance in person until the end of January 2021, and that in the interest of openness, accountability, and transparency, ACRD board and committee meetings be conducted via Zoom video conferencing and live streamed on the ACRD website, and the public continue to have opportunity to participate in the Zoom meetings via Zoom webinar or emailing the ACRD at responses@acrd.bc.ca to provide comments and or input respecting agenda items. And further, that in the interest of openness, accountability, and transparency, ACRD public hearings be conducted via Zoom video conferencing or other electronic means. So I will move that. Do we have a seconder?
Second.
Thank you, Director Roberts. And I see Director Roberts and then Director McNabb for comments. Please go ahead.
Just briefly, Chair, should those have been approved on separate items, or are you just including them all in one?
I'm going to include them all in one. So the rescinding is part one, and then the actual replacement is part two.
Okay, thank you for that.
Okay. Sorry, Director McNabb, please go ahead.
So my question is around the date, the end of January 2021. Currently, the provincial emergency order is in place until December 22nd. But we don't know that when that's going to end. And this is supported by the provincial order, the health order, and the emergency. So I'm kind of wondering if we should not state that it's in effect until the end of the health order or the end of the emergency state of provincial emergency.
So rather
versus
than
the date.
Yeah, so rather than a date, peg it to the status of the order.
The reason we have the authority to do it in the first place.
Wendy, can we peg it to M192? Or does that get changed every time they renew it?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd want to, yeah. I think if something changes, we could just bring something to the next board meeting. Might be cleaner than tying it to the regulation. Doug, did you have any comment on that?
Well, Mr. Chair, what I would observe is that if this passes and the new protocol is in place, if it is tied to a provincial order and then it expires with the provincial order, then we need something to have in its stead. And we aren't able to predict what that's going to be, like if it'll be a slightly different order, if it'll be back to the thing we're just about to vote on in terms of stepping away from, et cetera. So there are 2 meetings in January. So I think there's going to be good opportunity to address this as we go, and which is why we were thinking about the end of January for that purpose.
Okay, so part of it is coverage, so you want to chain it so that there's overlap. Dr. Shannon, go ahead.
Thank you. I was going to ask the same question or similar to Director McNabb, just kind of, but more because we have that first meeting in January and the provincial order right now for like isolation essentially is January 8th. Could we go to the first board meeting and then talk about it at that one rather than the second one at the end of the month? To kind of be a little bit closer then to see what the province is going to do and in 4 weeks time versus 6, because my concern is that we're going to be getting into more budgeting, and if we can try and have more conversations maybe a little bit earlier and see what the province does, I think it just shows a little bit more flexibility or openness on our part that we'd be trying to do all that we could to have the public there and not just electronically, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I think I understand the sentiment. I'm just really concerned that after Christmas, you know, those first meetings are within that 2-week window after Christmas. So I expect things to get worse before they get better, but I am not a health officer, but I definitely want to be responsive to that. We could put it to that first meeting in January though, if that helps.
Yeah, I guess I was kind of leaning towards that because then we're kind of looking at that, then we're closer to that January 8th day kind of is what I'm thinking in my mind that the province has put out. And then just kind of go along that as best we can. Just a thought.
Okay. Douglas and then Wendy.
Well, Mr. Chair, my observation is that if we learn anything earlier than the January 13th board meeting, we will have something, of course, in front of you to be as current as possible in any event. And so if we have it expire by then we will have to prepare another report that says what we did before we're still doing, kind of thing. I guess we're just trying to avoid that. But we do commit to, though, if there's anything that is updated that needs changing, that we would want to be as current as possible. We do understand the board's interest in getting as much access by the public as possible.
Or even just a chance at it if things do magically get better. So just looking at the way that folks were reacting, I think there's openness to making the date be that January date, that first January date instead. And then I fully expect that we're just going to punt the ball again as far as the province will let us. So it's kind of moot to me, but if this is something that matters to the directors, then I think we should do it. So what was the date again? Sorry. I think it's going to be the 13th. Is that the one, correct? Yeah.
Yes, January 13th.
Okay, if someone could move an amending motion to that 13th, then that would be helpful.
Mr. Chair, may I suggest the 14th? That way, just there's no confusion as to what we're doing on the 13th that way.
Okay. All right. With that in mind, Director Shannon, are you okay to move that amending? Okay, and do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Cole. Comments? All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, back to the main motion then, now that it is amended to the 14th. All those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, so with that in mind, I would like to call for a quick recess or pause just for a bio break. We'll come back at 3:40 if possible. Alrighty. I don't think we need a motion for that, so I'll see everyone in 7 minutes.
So when we come back, we will be
yeah. So that'll
on
be
electoral area on B, I'm assuming.
So we can either do A and C first and then do B when you come back, or we can do B first, depending on how you want to do it.
I can't remember. I thought you put them to the end.
Yeah, so I was going to do item A and C first, because those are the ones that you're declaring conflict
Okay.
on. And then when you come back, we'll do B. So it's out of order, but then we don't have to kind of play musical chairs.
Okay.
All right.
I'll see you later.
Yep. Janice may kick you out, but you'll still be connected.
Okay.
Okay.
that have taken us to this point right now. Canada is your problem.
Hey, Brother Roberts, can you hear me? Cal.
Yes, I can hear you.
So two things. What's with the digit? And is it cold up there that you had to wear a toque? What's up? What's up there? What's going on, dude?
It's a Christmas hat.
A Christmas hat. What did you do to your finger?
That would be a crush partial amputation.
Ah.
They're trying to save it, but I don't think they're going to be able to.
Oh, wow. How did you do that?
Helping a neighbor move a piece of steel, and it slipped off his pry bar, and my finger was underneath it.
Foolish
600
place to
pounds.
leave it.
Yeah.
Oh,
Anyway,
geez.
yeah.
Anyway, take care. I have to ask Director Cole something about that stubby young man that walked by. She's not paying any attention to me.
Okay, a bit late. Sorry about that. We are not nearly as far through the agenda as I thought we'd be by now. Okay. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7. Need one more? Need one more, maybe?
We need eight directors total.
Yeah. There we go. Thank you, Director Haggard. Okay, so we'll keep going. Next item. Oh, wait, do we have enough electoral area directors? Tanya, John, Bob. Yep, that's enough. Okay, so we'll go into 9.1. So what I thought we'd do is we would do A and then C and then go to B after everyone gets back. Okay, so that brings us to RD 19010. And please go ahead, Mike.
Sure. So this is relates to a rezoning application that the board dealt with in the summer. So the applicant's agent has written to the board, and I think I've outlined the history, as well as the letter from Helen Sims has also sort of outlined the history of where we're at. So the applicant is asking that bylaw P1406 be amended to allow for 2 seasonal cabins per lot. Given the location and sort of the background, staff are not supportive of amending this, and have provided a recommendation just to receive the letter and not make any amendments to the bylaw. I just note that in my report also included an option if the board does wish to consider amending it. This is it's an island in Great Central Lake. It's accessed by boat. There are some existing cabins on the property. The purpose of the island is owned by several families with a complicated ownership structure, and what we had done as staff in preparing this report is provided, followed a similar zone that we'd had specifically applied to a property in Great Central Lake under similar circumstances where it was accessed by water only, was recreational. And it does provide them options for subdivision. So happy to answer any questions if any of the directors have any.
Director McNabb, I saw you there.
So I'd move that the board of directors receive the applicant's letter, and I don't know if leave is the word we need in there, and forward the bylaw P1406 as presented at first reading.
Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Beckett. Any further comments? Seeing none. Oh, Dr. Shannon, go ahead.
Thank you. I have a couple questions on this, and I know this has been what it is. So, Mike, can you explain a little bit more? Because in your history and some background information, you say that it should also be noted that the zone and subdivision layout proposed by the applicant would allow 6 cabins on 3 lots while avoiding the parkland dedication provisions of the Local Government Act. Can you elaborate on that a little bit for me?
Certainly. So the parkland dedications relates to the number of parcels created, not the number of dwellings that would be permitted. So if there is, it's more than 3 new. So basically, if you take a parcel and create 4 lots out of the one parcel, and at least one of the parcels is less than 2 hectares or 5 acres, parkland, the provisions of the Local Government Act that apply to parkland dedication kick in, and so look, we as a regional district would have the option to consider parkland dedication, either cash in lieu or 5% of the property dedicated as park. Typically you have one dwelling or a seasonal dwelling per property. So the way this is proposed, parkland dedication cannot be required, I guess is what I'm saying.
Okay. And
I think it's important to note that, right? So the goal in the original, the way the subdivision layout is proposed is they could have up to 6 cabins on 3 lots, with no parkland. One of the other things is no parkland dedication. I think my other comments still apply. Around I don't think it's good practice to have two recreational cabins on 1 lot.
Okay. Chair, if I may have another question then? Thank you. So then if we pass this motion now, it's going back to the Sprout Lake APC, correct?
No. If we pass this motion the way it was, Director Matt, if pass the motion that's on the floor, we would be able to proceed to public hearing stage with this. So the bylaw already is drafted in a way that there's 1 cabin up to just over 1,600 square feet permitted per lot, and then would provide the option to ultimately have 4 lots. So what they're wanting to do right now is 3, but there is the option for 4 lots.
Okay, so how it's worded now is there's 3, but it could be 4 lots for a total of 4 cabins on that island.
That's correct. Yeah, that's how the bylaw is drafted. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Director McNabb.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So how does this affect lot 2 that already has 2 cabins?
They would just be legal non-conforming.
Yeah.
Okay, so with that in mind, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay. That brings us to item C, which is a Cherry Creek rezoning application. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, so this is a property, for those of you that are familiar, it's on Sherwood Road. There's an industrial park in this area. And it is on the south side of Sherwood Road. There is a small portion of this property already has some M2 zoning, and the applicants have applied to expand that zoning a little bit. It does comply with the OCP. Staff are recommending that we proceed with this development application. One of the staff recommendations is that a condition of rezoning be that a biologist, an environmental assessment be done by a biologist, just to ensure that there's no negative impacts on the creek, Roger Creek, that's there. So it's in close proximity to Roger Creek, and certainly our assessment, it seems reasonable, but that would be sort of one of the conditions we would have. And happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Are there any comments or questions? Go ahead. Director Shannon and then Director McNabb.
Oh, thank you. I was just going to start moving the motion.
Go ahead.
Okay, I would move that the Regional District of Alberni Clayoquot Zoning Atlas Amendment Bylaw P1413 be read a first time.
Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Dr. Roberts. Okay, comments. Dr. McNabb, did you have comments?
So they're wanting to, I'm just kind of understanding what they want to do here.
So
to create a larger parcel, but for industrial subdivision, not for residential subdivision.
That's correct. Yes, it would be it would be an industrial lot.
That little word's missing out of there. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the first motion? No, motion carried. And the second motion?
I would move that the public hearing for bylaw P1413 be delegated to the director or the alternate director for electoral area F, the chairperson of the electoral area directors committee, or the chairperson of the regional district.
I thought you said chair force for a minute there. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Dr. Roberts. Quick on the draw. Okay. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, so that brings us to the third and last one.
Okay, and then I would move that the board of directors confirm that adoption of bylaw P1413 is subject to a confirmation from a registered on-site wastewater practitioner that the site is capable of accommodating on-site sewage disposal for industrial uses. B, environmental report prepared by a registered professional biologist providing development recommendations to mitigate impact on the adjacent Roger Creek ravine. And C, meeting technical referral agency requirements.
Great. Do we have a seconder? Sorry, I missed that. Thank you, Dr. McNabb. Any further comments? Go ahead.
I just wanted to note that I think it's great that there's a little more industrial property available in the Alberni Valley.
Very well noted. Okay, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay, so let's get the other directors back in. We'll head on to letter B. Item B. Are they in the waiting room? Oh, yes, they are. Okay. So there's Diane's camera. And Director Cote, are you online now? Director Cote? Oh, there we go. Great. So this brings us to item B under 9.1. And so this is a Beaver Creek one. Go ahead, Mike. When you're ready.
So this is a rezoning application. The applicants have a parcel on Grandview Road. The ultimate intention is to create 3 lots out of this parcel. The Beaver Creek APC did review this application on Monday night and passed a motion supporting the application. And the other thing I would note is that given the lot configuration, most likely, in staff's opinion, if this was to be approved for rezoning and then proceed to subdivision stage, that there would also be a need for a 10% frontage waiver if a panhandle is considered for the lot in the back, and possibly a width variance for at least one of the lots. And just always prudent to note that at this stage for when it comes back. And again, if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
I have a question on one of the terms used. Panhandle, is that just a long, weird driveway that's shared?
Yes, or it might just be what attaches to the individual lot. It's literally like the handle of a pan is the road access, but without dedicating the road, it becomes part of the parent parcel.
Oh, okay. Thank you for that.
Question.
Go ahead, Director Roberts.
Does that have to, if it's a panhandle, does it have to be a covenant?
Depending on how they do it, they do have some options. There would also be an option to do it as the ultimate subdivision, as a common, like the access for say 2 parcels at the back of the property could be common property for road access, and so it would look the same. There's also the option that the Ministry of Transportation, as the approving officer, could could require that road dedication be included. So. We'll certainly, we talked about this at the APC meeting, and we generally would help applicants sort of through this option if that's something they want to discuss when they move towards the subdivision stage. So we have had experience with all 3 types. So
Thank you. I have Director McNabb and then Director Shannon.
Okay, I move that the Regional District of Alberni-Claycoat Zoning Atlas Amendment Bylaw P1421 be read the first time.
Thank you. Seconded by Director Shannon. Any other comment, Director Shannon?
Yes, thank you. Just looking at page 172 of the agenda, is there not road access at the back to these lots? Is that not Fraser Road that 90s and goes behind it? Or
yeah,
no?
even if there is, it's not connected to anything.
Okay.
So sometimes there's road access, like road dedication, but it's not practical. Like it's there, but you can't get to it. It's just a chunk in the middle of, surrounded as an island.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any further comments on this first motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed, motion carried.
I'd move that the public hearing for bylaw P1421 be delegated to the Director for Electoral Area E, the alternate director, or the chairperson of the regional district.
Seconder, thank you, Director Roberts. Any further comments? Seeing,
Just
go ahead.
Just that the plan itself is very loose, and I'm hoping that before we get it to a public hearing, it'll be more definite, especially with regard to the road and to the attachment to the 2 developed lots, so that we can understand exactly how it's all going to be put together. That's it.
Okay, just drop the loose leaf. Okay, so any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? All opposed? Motion carried. Okay,
I've moved that the Board of Directors confirm the adoption of bylaw P1421 is subject to confirmation from a registered on-site wastewater practitioner that the property is capable of accommodating on-site sewer disposal to a minimum of 0.06 acre density and meeting technical referral agency requirements.
Thanks.
That'll be highways and everything.
Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Director Shannon. Any further comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Great. So that concludes planning, and that brings us to item 10.1, which are staff reports. So first up is Ms. Zenner with the verbal update on the EOC.
Great, thank you. So today there are 158 cases in the Vancouver Island Health Authority. This is down from 207 yesterday. Some information I received today from our Central Island Medical Health Officer was that the regional health orders that were put in place in the Lower Mainland in early November are starting to slow the number of cases of COVID in that area. And since those health orders have been broadened to the entire province, cases have plateaued. So the efforts that people are making are helping to keep the case numbers under control. So that's very positive news. But as you know, Dr. Henry extended the public health orders until January 8th. So that's going to have a significant impact on how we celebrate our holidays, our upcoming holidays. Today, Health Canada approved the Pfizer vaccine, and the province is currently doing a news briefing to detail the outline the details of their vaccine rollout plan. My understanding is that the vaccine's arriving next week in a small amount of doses. The Pfizer vaccine is not intended for children under the age of 16. It's not intended for pregnant women, nor for people with immune compromised conditions. So my understanding is that this first vaccine that's coming next week is going to be targeted to Vancouver Coastal and Fraser Valley, and it's going to be targeted towards healthcare workers in long-term care facilities, acute care, ICU, emergency room, and COVID medical wards. And there's additional information being released right now, but I had to step back into this meeting. Marie and Chris were on earlier from Island Health, and they talked about the outbreak at West Coast General Hospital. And I just want to reiterate what Marie did say about West Coast General Hospital being open, being available for medical services. They've seen a decrease in the number of people seeking medical help. So we really just want to encourage anybody listening to this meeting that the hospital is open and providing medical assistance to those that need it. So currently we do have 3 school exposures in the Alberni Valley, including at ADSS, 8th Ave Learning Center, and McQuina Elementary. Those are all on the tail end of their exposure periods. And it's important to note that these exposures were limited to 1 person in each case. There was no spread through the schools. The school district has seen dips in attendance when these announcements come out, and it's concerning when students are missing extended periods of time. So just something to note. As well, next week, Island Health is changing their location of the COVID testing center in Port Alberni. So they're moving from their tent at West Coast General Hospital, and they've been building a site which is located behind the Glenwood Center. So they will be making that switch next week. Some further information will come from Island Health about that. It's going to increase the capacity of testing, so more testing can be done quicker. It will still be done by appointment, and it will be drive-through. And the purpose of moving it was to ensure that the testing could be delivered year-round in any weather conditions. And then as far as the EOC, we're still meeting weekly with West Coast General Hospital, Island Health, City, Fire Department, RCMP, meeting weekly with Emergency Management BC, and we've been getting weekly updates from Central Island's Medical Health Officer, which has been very helpful. We're still continuing on with social media posts, and Mayor Minions, as our spokesperson, will be doing another video tomorrow to share some of the local information with the community. And that's about it.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions? Go ahead, Director Cote.
Thank you. Sorry if I missed it, but I didn't hear where the new test site will be.
It's located behind the Glenwood Center.
It's going to be a drive-through center, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, any further questions? Okay, on behalf of the board, thank you for your update, Heather. It's very helpful. And sorry we had to pull you out of the other meeting. Okay, so unless anyone has anything they'd like to pull out of the reports, we can just move to receive it all. Thank you, Director Cole. Seconded by Director, I think McNabb, or I think that was Director Roberts. Okay. Further comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? Motion carried. Okay, no committee reports. It brings us to member reports. So we are in an open meeting. Director McNabb, 911 Corporation.
It just plot thickens. That's about it. The things are looking very positive, though. Thank you.
Good.
As far as next year's budget.
Okay, Regional Library, Director Cote.
Thank you. No report.
Chamber of Commerce, Alberta Valley, Director Minions.
Thank you. The Chamber, of course, is very focused on McLean Mill, but another initiative that they have going on right now is the Better by Port Alberni website, which they started in the first round of COVID, first wave of COVID, and it is intended to be a place where local businesses who are not online can allow people to buy gift certificates. So it's been an awesome site. It's getting more and more uptake. A lot more businesses joining it, and it's really alleviated for some local business owners where people are wanting to support them during these difficult times and maybe don't want to leave their house or don't want to go into a business. It gives an online and easy platform to buy gift certificates or other products. So for anyone who hasn't checked that out, it's a really important initiative for the Chamber. I believe it's betterbyportalberni.ca, and yeah, they've just done a fantastic job with it. Thank you.
All those one word? Yeah, okay. All right, that brings us to our Quality Council, Director Bodner.
Yes, thank you. Larry Koss from Catalyst came to the air quality meeting to give a talk about how the environmental processes are going on with the pulp mill, and in the long-term trends, it seems to, in regards to the PM 2.5 emissions, they have been consistently going down. And that's all from the power boiler stacks. The wood stove exchange, there's 6 exchanges have been completed, and there's 2 more in process. We have 2 low-cost sensors put up in the valley. One is at 6th and Radford, and the other one is at 6th and North Park Drive. And we're looking forward to getting 4 more of them in the valley. Also, there is a new committee. They're calling themselves, the new group of citizens calling themselves the Alberni Climate Action, and dedicated to reducing carbon footprint in the community. So this is something new. We don't know anything about them yet. And I believe Anna's going to be inviting them to the meeting so that we can find out more about it. Thank you.
Thank you. That brings us to West Coast Aquatic, Director Roberts.
Nothing to report.
Thanks. Director Cote, AVICC.
We have a meeting this weekend. So we'll probably be talking then about the convention, what we'll be doing, and what we'll be doing with resolutions. Thanks.
Thank you. Director McNabb, you might as well go from Water Advisory into West Island Woodlands all in one. Go ahead. Oh, you're muted though. You're still muted. Sorry.
Oh, no report on WEWAG. There hasn't been a meeting since the last one, but
yeah.
And the Beaver Creek water system's still flowing along meter by meter. That's it.
Thank you. Item I is the Agricultural Development Committee. Dr. Shannon and/or Dr. Cote.
Thank you. We heard a presentation from Heather this morning, earlier in this meeting. So she really covered a lot of it. I think the only thing I would add is that there's been an invite to the Honorable Josie Osborne to attend an agriculture meeting to hear more about stuff for the Valley. She couldn't attend the one yesterday, so there's a plan to put something together in January for not just the ADC, but the Ag Advisory Committee and possibly any local producers that would like to have a chat. And that there is a request for member recruitment and for new members, possibly including representation from Banfield, New Chawnuth, Chamber of Commerce, Island Health, youth stakeholders, and a number of other possibly interested parties. So if anybody knows of anybody that might be interested in some agriculture, let Heather know, or I would assume Penny or I, and we'd be happy to pass that on. Thank you.
Great. All right.
I'd just like to add a little more.
Go ahead.
That our Alberni Fall Fair won a national award from the Canadian Fair Association. That's an innovation award. They did an excellent job online this year, bringing forward the fair offerings. There's a work being done on emergency plan for agriculture in the community. This Beaver Creek Hall has got a seed fundraiser, and there'll be starter packs again in the beginning of 2021 for those people in the community that would like it. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Director Cote. Are there any other reports? Okay, seeing none, could we get a motion to receive the reports? Thank you, Director Roberts. Do we have a seconder? Dr. Shannon. All right, last chance for comments. Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion carried. Okay, no unfinished business, no late business. Wendy, any responses?
Sorry. No, there's no input or questions from the public today.
Okay, then let us have a motion to recess for the Regional Hospital District meeting. Thank you, Director Roberts, seconded by Director Shannon. All those in favor? Motion carried. Okay, Mr. Chair, please go ahead.
Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order and recognize that we are on the territories of the Tishat and Nepetchezet First Nations, and that we honor that. And notice to the attendees that the delegates that this meeting is being recorded and live streamed to YouTube on the Regional District website. So I'd ask for an approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Seconder?
John.
Good, done. All in favor? Carried. Okay, so we have the adoption of the minutes of the Board of Directors meeting November 12th, 2020.
John, so moved.
Okay, and seconder? Sorry, I can't see you also, maybe you need to.
Diane.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and is there any errors or omissions in that? Nope. All in favor? Carried. No petitions or delegations. We don't have any correspondence. So requests for decisions and bylaws. So we have the 2021 provisional budget. So somebody would like to move that, please?
Mr. Chair, I'd move that the Alberni-Clydecourt Regional Hospital District Board of Directors give first reading to the bylaw cited as Alberni-Clydecourt Regional Hospital District 2021 to 2025 provisional budget number 130.
Seconder?
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Carried. Next.
And Mr. Chair, I'd move that the Alberni-Clydecourt Regional Hospital District Board of Directors give second reading to the bylaw cited as Alberni-Clydecourt Regional Hospital District 2021 to 2025 provisional budget number 130.
Seconder?
Second.
Okay. Any questions on that? All in favor? Carried. Opposed? So I should ask for opposed because I can't see you. So anybody opposed? Carried. Okay, next.
Mr. Chair, I'd move that the Alberni-Clydecourt Regional District Hospital District Board of Directors give third reading to the bylaw cited as Alberni-Clydecourt Regional Hospital District 2021 to 2025 provisional budget number 130.
Second.
Okay. Is there any questions on that? All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Last one.
And Mr. Chair, I'd move that the Alberni-Clydecourt Regional Hospital District Board of Directors adopt the bylaw cited as Alberni-Clydecourt Regional Hospital District 2021 to 2025 provisional budget number 130.
Seconder?
Second.
Okay, on the motion, all in favor? Anybody opposed? Carried. Okay, now on to member reports. Bamfield Health Center. It's you, Bob.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Things have slowed down considerably with COVID, the lack of travel, and of course, most of the fishing is long gone. There has been a 100% increase in our community residents getting their flu immunization shot. So hopefully that's a good indication of the folks that are going to be in line waiting to get the COVID shot when it's available. And other than that, everything is good with our staff. And that's my report, sir.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Any questions on that? Okay, Alberni-Clydecourt Continuing Care Society. We did have a meeting. One of the things that came out of the meeting is on a budgetary item, the COVID issues, the staffing and extra expense of COVID between the two, Fur Park and Echo, the cost is about $250,000 for the fiscal year, and that cost has really not been addressed. And the single site mandate is one of the major contributors to that cost, because they were using nursing staff a few days a week at Fur Park and then the rest of the time at Echo. Now they can only use them the few days a week on either side, and some of them have gone to other healthcare facilities, and it's rather complicated, but it is very expensive. So that's my report on that. If I could be given a little latitude, I'll give you a quick report on the capital meeting with Island Health. A couple of things that came out of that is a recognition that the Canadian Health Act has actually changed from 1965, and the new act just includes long-term care as one of the covered mandates. And there was a little blurb that came out of Mr. Sullivan's mouth at this meeting with regards to the Tofino Hospital. First of all, that it was back in the active planning stage. The second part of it was that they were planning for at least 6 long-term care beds, which I've never heard of before. So I did mention the discrepancy in the hours of care between our facilities in the Alberni Valley, and they did address that in a letter to me later, that explaining how it was calculated, and that they intended to address it, which is great. And I did also mention Health Network support, and I got a very positive response on that, that it was in their budget into the future, and we could more or less depend on it. So, and I did mention funding for capital for long-term care units in the Alberni Valley. At this point, there has been no funding put into the 2021 budget for capital roofing and repairs that have to be done to these facilities, which is standard. And they get a letter later with regards to that, saying that while it isn't there, they are planning on releasing the figures and the funding later on. So that, in a nutshell, is kind of it. I mean, there's more that goes on, the explanation of the situation with COVID and where they're going and what they're doing and all the rest, which you've heard anyhow. But this was mostly the new items on the table. So that's my report. Thank you. And we have West Coast Native Care.
I have a
Healthcare.
question.
Sure.
Just around First Nation Health Authority. Have they got a seat at the table now?
Yes. Yes. I can't tell you who that was. It was a gentleman.
Do you please pass that information along to me after?
Who it was?
Who it was, yes. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I've got it in the.
Okay,
it'll
thank
be
you.
in the minutes of it. Yeah, thanks.
Great.
And have you got a report on West Coast Native Healthcare?
Soyuz had a COVID case, so I think it was one resident and one worker. I can't quite recall who it was, but I think there's no new cases now, and I think everything's under control and moving along. Thanks.
Thank you, appreciate it. And Tofino General Hospital. Anybody got? Yes, Tom.
Thank you, Chairman McNabb. Just a few things to report. It was already alluded to by Maria and there, but just one of our capital projects, the X-ray machine upgrade is going to be completed next week. There are still the ongoing electrical upgrades to the patient rooms, and it's continuing, but well underway. Good news also with our trauma bay refurbishment, which is in sore need, is scheduled for the springtime. The ongoing hospital infrastructure issues are still there almost on a daily basis between heating, plumbing, and electrical. And it was reported to me, the maintenance department is constantly in that up mode out there. Some very good news in regards to staffing levels, which was alluded to by Maria as well. There was the 2 public health nurse positions, basically centered on contact tracing and testing. There's also some targeted funding, which she spoke about related to opiate crisis. So there was a nurse position, which will be starting in 2 weeks. There's a social worker position, which is open and they're actively recruiting for it this time. A caseworker position, which has been filled, but they're just negotiating a start date for that position. And another note was that the extra summer nurses that were allocated there, due to our, as everyone knows, our unusually large increase in seasonal tourism, those 2 positions are going to be extended further into, and there was not an end date as far as I know, but those positions will be extended further, once again, in relation to the unexpected increase in our seasonal amount of related cases that come into the hospital. The season is extending longer and longer as it seems. Those were the main ones. I did want to share with the board. There's a group called the West Coast Wellness Action Group, which I'm a participant on previous to my council days. And last year we produced a vital document that kind of outlined the issues that were related with the Tofino General Hospital. I tried to technically get that to you, was not able to at this time, but I will commit to getting that pamphlet. It's in digital form pamphlet sent to board members, and I might connect with Wendy on how that might be the most appropriate way of doing it. And so I will commit to getting that sent out, and I think it will broadly give a good outline of some of the issues and the history and background with the Tofino General Hospital. And then on another note, as one of the newest members, I did want to just mention about my appreciation for the foresight in the financial planning with the reserve funds specifically, and with the recognition that there will be some potential significant increases in the future with the capital portion that the regional district would be responsible for. And I did want to express my appreciation for that, and that I look forward to the continued conversation in the financial plan around those allocations. I know that statically right now, that flat rate of 1.8 is there, and that with issues around pandemic, we're very cautious of any increases in taxation to our residents. But I do wanted to note that moving forward, I think it would be very wise for us to be looking at potentially increases in those reserve contributions for that long-term capital planning. Thank you. And I don't know if Director Cole would have anything else to add to that. I'm sure from, there's some work going on in Ukulele right now. So.
Thank you. Yes, I'd just like to add, there are on the West Coast, as far as healthcare outreach through Island Health, there are 2 other assets for vaccinations, COVID testing, and COVID positive wellness checks for people isolating in community, and those from out of community from our surrounding First Nations area, house it in particular. And that's the community paramedic role, one in Tofino and in Ukulele. I happen to be the Ukulele one, but those are 2 other resources for outreach during the pandemic and the expanded scope that we'll be practicing as well. So we're really gearing up to be able to take care of future influxes and then the upcoming vaccinations, of course.
Thank you. Any questions on that? Okay, Alberni-Clayoquot Health Network.
Hello, we have a meeting next week. We're doing recruitment right now. Thank you to Bob Beckett for bringing in a couple of people to put their applications in. So there is other people that are interested. So we'll be starting to take a look at the applications tomorrow. And we have our last meeting for the year is next Wednesday.
Okay, and Chair Jack informed me that the fellow that there was Paul Sam, and I remember that it was Paul Sam. So thank you. Yes, Tom.
Thank you, and through the chair to Director Cote. I just there was a call out for the table of partners that I was just, in fact, Elise Gocher, our manager of corporate services, is filling out my application as we speak from the district of Tofino to that table of partners. So she's hoping to get it in by the deadline coming. I believe it's tomorrow is the deadline.
Oh, not a problem.
Great.
Glad to hear that you're putting in an application. Thank you.
Okay, and we have West Coast General Hospital, and Director Minions is wanting to comment there. Isn't that what I heard?
She's left the meeting, Mr. Chair.
Oh, she has. Okay. Well, she put something on there that she was going to make a comment with regards to that West Coast. You don't have that, do you?
I think she was going to do a report for next meeting, she said.
Oh, okay. Alrighty.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
The comment that she put in the chat, if for those of you who haven't seen it, she just talked that the thing that she would update about West Coast Hospital is that they're struggling to attract registered nurses, so we're working on an attraction campaign, and she will update next meeting as said.
Alrighty then. Okay, so any other reports? That's it. Unfinished business, late business, question period. Anybody in the public asking questions?
No, there were no questions or comments from the public today, Mr. Chair.
Okay. I'd just like to say that one of the things that came out in the capital meeting, I've got you, Kelda. One of the things that came out in the capital meeting was that there are no long-term beds, long-term care beds in this year's capital plan, the extended plan or the short-term plan in the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District. In virtually all of the other regional districts, there are plans for long-term care beds, which is disappointing in that the local rate of open beds is less than 1%, with even at Echo and Fur Park, they've got 10 to 12 people waiting constantly. So Director Roberts and then Director Stir.
I'd like to, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to recommend that the Regional Hospital Board of Directors receive reports A to G.
Seconder.
John.
Okay, somebody did. Okay, yeah. All in favor? Sorry about that, I missed it. Anybody opposed? Don't want to receive those reports? No, we're good. Okay. And Tom, did you have something or was that it?
No, I just wanted to echo Director McNabb about the long-term care. Presently at Tofino General Hospital, I believe it's 6 beds are being taken right now in those situations for people waiting it. And so you're absolutely right. It was a little disappointing to hear that there was no allocated funding towards those long-term beds. I'm not sure what we can do about that other than to raise it whenever we have the opportunity to do so. Thank you.
Pretty much it. Okay, motion to adjourn. Seconder anywhere? Somebody say yes?
Yes, John Jack. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Nobody. Wow, look at that, eh? On to the next thing.
Okay, so that has us reconvening at 4:29 p.m. and we'll have a motion to go in camera, but I should read out the reasons why. So it's as per 91C, labor relations and other employee relations, 91J, information that is prohibited, or information that if it were presented in a document would be prohibited from disclosure under Section 21 of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. Also 20 sub 1A sub 2 of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, commercial, financial, labor relations, scientific or technical information of or about a third party. And then finally 3, section 91K, which is negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of a regional district service that are at their preliminary stages and that in the view of the board could reasonably be expected to harm the interests of the regional district if they were held in public. So could I get someone to move that motion?